Yeah, we will. And just to say, I for some reason can't see the Q&A box, so you're going to let us know about any questions that come up. And also, embarrassingly, we realised that Jussi is wearing exactly the same shirt as he is in the picture in this beginning slide. So I promise you, he does change clothes. So
at least wash them every now and then.
So I'm Laura Willoughby. I'm one of the co-founders of Club Soda, and Jussi is the other. We've both been working on this project, and we're lucky to be in the same space together. I'm not sure if Jussi agrees with that, but we live together. So we live and work now, thanks to COVID, together. So just a brief introduction to Club Soda for anybody who's new to us. Club Soda has been going for about 6 years now, and it stemmed out of actually my experiences of quitting drinking. I'm realising that there wasn't anything really out there like Weight Watchers or Slimming World for changing your drinking. So at the core of what we do is we're a behaviour change community of people changing their drinking habits. And you'll see in this picture here, we have online behaviour change courses, which we have built with funding from the Wellcome Trust to help people change their drinking. But we've got a community of over 50,000 people. It has led us in a really interesting direction, because not long after we started, we did some research about how to change the behaviour of pubs and bars towards their non-drinking customers, because I was bored of the pint of Coke in the pub. Just at a point in time we did that research, some of the brands like Heineken started to bring out their 0.0s, and you would have seen there's been an explosion of low and no alcohol drinks in the sector. So we now do a whole load of things. So as well as running our behaviour change courses, we have Club Soda Guide, which is a guide to all the low and no alcohol drinks and where to buy them. That includes, in normal times, a rating system for venues on how good they are for mindful drinkers. We also run the Mindful Drinking Festival, which is a big real world festival where people come and try drinks and hear inspirational talks. We've done them in London and Glasgow, and we're due to do one in Manchester last year, which we were excitedly talking to Manchester University about, but obviously that didn't happen. We hope that will come again someday. We have a weekly podcast, and we also run Queers Without Beers as our community offshoot, which runs online and in Bristol, Manchester and London as a pop-up venue. But we're here today to talk to you about Be Rebel AF, which is a campaign that has built up over a couple of years in partnership with Bournemouth University, based on a goal of theirs really to, over time, work to reduce the amount students drink through lots of positive interactions. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about that. I also noticed that the slides are on a slight delay from when I press them, so hopefully they will come soon. All right, what's happening? There it is. There we go. So just to give you some background, in 2018, we did very last minute, we did some pop-up bars for Bournemouth University at their Freshers event. So we did a pop-up bar in each of their hall of residence and basically filled that bar with lots of new low and no alcohol drinks. We worked with lots of producers, and we found to get stock, but primarily we looked at getting the alcohol-free selections that were available in Asda, which is the closest supermarket to all of the halls in Bournemouth, so that students could try drinks that they could also go and buy. And we did a little bit of education work around, you know, the types of drinks that are available and the idea that they didn't have to drink if they didn't want to. That was a very quick piece of work, but from that we sat down with Bournemouth University to look at developing something a bit more robust and a bit stronger based on what we had learnt. And so I'll tell you a bit about the process we went through, but a lot of what we built is based on some of the stats that had come through from the university's pre-entry questionnaire, their pre-freshers questionnaire that they do as soon as students begin to register for the university. So what we know is that coming into university, 25% of the students at Bournemouth don't drink at all. That won't be a stat that's particularly unusual to you. It's a general stat that's applying to most young people at the moment anyway. But the main motivator for younger people not drinking so much is to improve their mental health and well-being. I can tell you certainly that the whole conversation going on around under 25s at the minute is generally around mental health. Their protection of their mental health is very high, and they are far more cognizant of the effect alcohol has on that than maybe my generation, which is that Ladette generation. We also know that some of them are drinking less for financial reasons, and that's borne out actually in a sector that shows that when young people go out, they average out at 3 drinks in an evening, whereas previous generations have gone up to as far as 5 drinks in an evening. Very conscious of study requirements in terms of students. Oh look, why do I have a... Oh yes, and then physical health is really high as well. So mental health and well-being and physical health and fitness actually comes in slightly higher at 25%. And then finally, there's some stats, and I haven't put them all here, but these are actually screen grabs from Instagram that we did as part of our campaign. So these are stats that we shared with students. 2% of freshers are drinking less alcohol because of social impact and reputation. So there's a whole host of reasons why students aren't drinking, or they're drinking less, and we shouldn't underestimate the desire for moderation. In the UK, about 4 million people don't drink at all, but 17 million want to moderate their drinking in some way. So younger people are you know, it's not that they're going totally teetotal, but some of them are very careful about what, where, when and how, what they're drinking, who they're drinking with, and the circumstances in which they do it. So when we talk about the Be Rebel AF campaign, we're not just talking about being nice to people who don't drink at all. We're talking about understanding that, yes, somebody may drink on a Friday night, but they may not want to drink on a Sunday. And that should be perfectly socially acceptable, and you shouldn't give your mates any grief. Or they may be, you know, leading up to a sporting event, or they may have exams coming up, and then there are many reasons why people may be drinking less or not at all. So this is sort of the background on which we based the campaign. I'm telling you it's going slow. There we are. We are very clear in Club Soda about using real information to test what we do and get real user input. So we ran a number of focus groups testing our initial ideas for the overall campaign messaging. And we are firm believers that changing the language around talking about drinking and getting the messaging right is really important. All the evidence shows, and we all probably know it ourselves as well, that if you tell people not to drink, they get we get very belligerent in this country, and we are likely to go out and actually drink more in response to being told what to do and how much to drink. And equally, you're working with young people who are taking their first steps into adult life and don't necessarily want to be told what to do and how to adult, particularly by the fact that we are probably that they're being told that by the biggest drinking generation in this country, which is people aged 55 and over who drink the most in this country. So you don't want to tell them what to do, but equally being able to have conversations about alcohol need to happen. So we did lots of work on trying to understand what messaging would land better and what it was that we were trying to achieve through the campaign. And very much we wanted to couch it in a way that we know works in terms of positive behaviour change, which is around substitution, around choice, and around choosing alcohol-free or being alcohol-free as a choice, as an act of self-protection and an act of strength. So we developed a strategy with Bournemouth University. So our messaging was about normalising not drinking, that it's okay to ask for an alcohol-free drink, bearing in mind that asking for an alcohol-free drink is one of the biggest barriers to people making that option in an evening, that everyone should respect others' choices to not drink, and creating that culture of permission and consent, just like you would around other social issues. So that's what our aim was in terms of the Be Rebel AF campaign. And then we worked on a number of particular ways to deliver this campaign. So you'll see we've got a logo there. This logo was designed by the Yaza twins, who designed quite a lot of big drinks brands. They took all of that research and data and the inputs from the focus groups to design something that felt fresh and interesting. And then we worked really hard on trying to find a way to talk about events and being curious and alcohol-free as something that's socially acceptable. Now, in all the halls of residence freshers events, the university won't put alcohol in them at all anyway. So that was already a sort of a given. But we wanted to make sure that the campaign was more than just a few bottles of Gordon's pre-made gin and tonic on a table. We wanted to do more than that. So we've worked on a social media campaign. We produced social media assets that basically went across loads of different channels, and I'll show you those. From the middle of June, virtually, when is the popular time for vodka revolutions to start promoting to students. So we started promoting around the same time, all the way through to the end of the 2 weeks of freshers. We also produced an alcohol-free fridge fill welcome pack. So every single flat had a fridge fill of 4 different alcohol-free products with welcome messaging around, you know, if you're going to enjoy, celebrate your newfound friends with these drinks, and here's what these drinks are and where you can buy them. We produced a campus-wide newspaper. I'll show you some more of these things as we go through. We then ran pop-up events in every single one of those halls of residence. We ran a mindful pub crawl. Again, I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And then we gave students this year free access to our student version of our moderation course. I call it a moderation course, but it's actually a mindful drinking course, which just takes people through a journey of working out what's right for them around their drinking habits and to come to their own conclusions about what's right. And that course is called Be Rebel AF online, and that was made accessible this year. So we had a mixture of real world and online interventions, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. In the meantime, if you want to let me know if there are any questions, because I actually still can't see the Q&A, I'm happy to take them as we go through. So do feel free to unmute, or anybody ask me a question as we go through. Because I'm like already bored of listening to my own voice.
There aren't any questions that have come in through the Q&A box yet, but I'm sure that people are just listening, and I think that as the kind of speakers that are aware that they're like bored of listening to their own voice are normally very engaging speakers, which is the case now. So I don't think you need to worry.
I know, but I like to be interrupted.
Okay, cool. If anybody submits any questions, then I will unmute myself and interrupt you. Yeah. Cool.
So let me talk about the social media campaign first of all. It was a multi-channel campaign. We worked with not just Res Life, which is the accommodation provider in the university, but we worked with the student union and the welfare department and our own social channels to put out information. So we used, you'll see a list of some of the Instagram handles and Facebook pages and Facebook groups that we put information out on, and you'll see some of those there. And it's a mixture of imagery, videos, suggestions, ideas. You'll see there's long links to some of the pop-up events that were happening, all of which were worded in a way around supporting people to ask for an alcohol-free drink. Did you know the student union bar do this drink or that drink? Did you know Asda stock these drinks? If you're grabbing some stuff in the party, don't forget to pick up something for your mates in halls who aren't drinking, all of that sort of stuff. And we ran a large number of social posts, videos, and even case studies of students who cut down their drinking as part of their academic career or change their drinking. And you'll see some pictures of Millie and Scott down there, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a minute. But basically a whole load of stuff that we designed specifically and worded specifically for the university. There was
a series of blog posts as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, so, and a whole series of blog posts that took people through how not to bow to social pressure, how to say no to a drink, how to order an alcohol-free drink, you know, stories of people and experiences, and so on. I also mentioned the welcome pack. So I'll come on to this a little bit more, but there's a particular type of drink students like and don't like. We worked this out when we did the first ever student bars, when I went, well, there's clearly going to be some craft ale drinkers in the hall of residence, and then I ended up with hundreds and hundreds of bottles of craft beer because they wanted the Heineken or anything in a pink can, and anything on the sweeter end of the scale. We couldn't get rid of the alcohol-free Copperberg quick enough, and that's the same with the Old Moot cider. So fruity ciders are where it's at, everybody. But we worked with, this year, we worked with Old Moot and Strongbow. We had a mixture of the two. Their dark fruits, their new alcohol-free dark fruits. Budweiser and Beaver. Beaver are now available through NUS Services Limited. So we provided free product this year that went into all student fridges with a welcome pack note. And in fact, this year, because of COVID, everybody got a pack in their room rather than in the fridge because of contamination and all that stuff that you guys have been dealing with, right? So, but ideally, there's a pack in the fridge with some bottle openers and things like that that says, you know, these are for you all to enjoy as a flat whenever you're ready. These are all available in the local supermarket. And on the back of the newspaper, you can see a picture of, is a list of all the products plus more that we put in fridges that said which supermarket stock it. So it's a very practical route to saying to people, look, here's a drink we think you'll like. Here's where you buy it. And yes, this one's available behind the Student Union bar as well. We did work with the Student Union bar to make sure they had a really good range of alcohol-free drinks, but we can also come on to that in a minute. So yes, the newspaper also contains some of the stuff that was in the blog. So advice and information, ways to talk to bartenders if you're not drinking when you're out, you know, how to ask for a tonic and tonic and some of that sort of stuff, and reassuring students that actually bar staff will be happy to make them whatever they want and don't feel awkward about asking for an alcohol-free drink. Really important ways to reassure everybody that they're not unusual, that this is actually quite normal. We also did an alcohol-free pub crawl, which was a little bit harder actually to get the university to agree to, because promoting pubs generally felt a little bit awkward. But we're really passionate about this, and I will tell you why. One is that we do a lot of work with pubs and bars, and we are working hard to get venues all across the country to diversify what they've got behind the bar and to increase the amount of low and no that they've got. And we're beginning to win that fight. I mean, partly because the trend's changing, but also because, you know, venues are open 24/7 virtually, and they want a lunchtime trade and all sorts of stuff. So alcohol-free drinks really fit in that. We wanted to pick 3 of the most popular student venues to do this pub crawl with. And just by going to speak to those venues about running the pub crawl, we were able to have a positive conversation with them about what they stock. And you'll see that there's some quotes there from places like the Buffalo Bar that said, oh yeah, I've been thinking about this, because some students ask, what do you think we should serve? And we gave Buffalo Bar a list of what we felt were the most student-friendly drinks they could stock, how they might put them on their menu, and how to train their staff. So it just opens the door to having a really positive conversation. If some of you have got community action partnerships in your area, or you sit on a licensing forum or anything like that, this is a discussion that you can have in those places. I go and do talks at licensing forums all the time, but you know, you're not asking people to not stock things or to not have alcohol. What you're asking them to do is to add in choice, and we've got all the data and information you need to show why there is a market for this and ways that they can make sure they sell them well. So in the very first instance, it allowed us to have that conversation. Secondly, the event was about showing to students that it's not just about halls of residence and the halls of residence not wanting to serve you alcohol with this whole campaign, the welcome events. It's about going out into town, enjoying yourself all along with your colleagues and knowing that there are options. And so just by advertising the fact that it's possible to do an alcohol-free pub crawl and include vodka revolutions on that pub crawl, it is possible to go out and not drink. So just by having it there, hundreds and hundreds of students read about the fact that it's possible to go to Revolutions, O'Neill's and Buffalo Bar and not drink, because it must be possible, because they did an alcohol-free pub crawl. Now, we got in Millie and Scott to run the pub crawl because, you know, we're old. And just to give you some background, if you've not come across Millie and Scott, Millie runs Sober Girl Society, which is probably one of the most influential social media handles around changing drinking amongst young people. She runs her own events, but she's in her late 20s. she started drinking only when she got to university because she was a competitive dancer, and then has knocked it on the head from her mid-20s onwards. And she's very candid about talking about that university experience and what it meant for her, and why she would have had a better time at university if she hadn't drunk so much. Scott, also in his 20s, runs the Proud and Sober handle. So he does a lot of work about sharing LGBTQI voices in the space. And again, you know, gave up very soon after leaving university and is very open about talking about his experiences. So we brought in 2 really good social media influencers who I know how to run a good pub crawl, which they did. And they organised games in each venue. Everyone had their pub crawl lanyards, which told them what drinks were available and all of that sort of stuff, so that they knew that in Vodka Revolutions, there is actually 4 or 5 alcohol-free drinks that they could choose from. And if they're to go there in future with friends, they can do that because they know what the options already are before they even go up to the bar. And while there were only 15 attendees to that, the people who actually physically came on the pub crawl were students who were not interested in drinking, and they were really interested in finding out how they can go to those venues, which all the students are asking about, and not drink. So for the people that didn't go, it was about advertising the fact that it's possible to not drink at all these venues. But for those that went along, it was a real how to go out and socialise with everybody else, but not need to have alcohol when you're in these venues. I hope that makes sense.
And I think there was quite a few of them said that they were really nervous about going to any other freshers events because they knew that there was going to be a lot of drinking. So they said that, oh, I'm so thankful that there's one where nobody's drinking and I can come in and not feel like a weirdo. And we had a plan to track down all the people who came to the pub crawl a year later and see how they got along. But sadly, COVID stopped us from doing that particular piece of work.
But what we did is equip them with what they needed in order to navigate some of the most popular student venues in their Freshers Week. And I'm very proud of that fact. So then about the pop-up events. So we learned from our first year where we just did a bar that unsurprisingly, you will know this yourself, people want an event, they want an experience. And in fact, younger people are more experience motivated than any other generation. Vertical drinking at the bar is not fun. An event with magicians, entertainment, temporary tattoos is really important to them. And then serving drinks is the sidebar really, but is the important bit of making it an event. So based on our learning from the first year, this year we ran events in each of the Hall of Residence. The university organised those events in terms of live music, poetry sessions, absolutely tons of pizza, magic and the works for each halls. And then we supplied them with the product for the bar. And compared to the first year when we just did a pop-up bar, a huge number of more students came. We served over 1,150 drinks, and nearly all of them were old moot, alcohol-free. But we'll talk a little bit more about choices of drinks. But again, what we did is got students to come to something they wanted to come to, try something they weren't sure they were going to try, realise that there's a way, there are types of drinks available that make them feel part of the occasion and make them feel social. It's not like just having a pint of Coke all the time, and practice a new behaviour in a familiar setting, which is what Club Soda is all about. So we did all of those events, and you can see some of the comments there. You will get these slides afterwards as well. So there we go. So let me press that on.
We've just got a question in. So somebody's asked, did some non-drinkers say that they didn't want to come along to the pub? So I think that they're asking, like, was there any pushback that the alcohol-free event was held in a pub, or was that kind of purposeful?
I can't remember.
Not as far as we know, but people who tend to absent themselves from coming to things don't tell you generally.
Yeah.
What we did have is, and quite rightly, not every event's right for every person. So for example, if there was a Muslim student who just wouldn't want to go to the pub anyway, there's no way you were going to persuade them of that fact. But certainly they may have gone to something in their Hall of Residence. And there was certainly the most stark example I can remember is a student coming down who suffers severely from social anxiety, who said that he didn't want to go to a pub, so he didn't go on the pub crawl, but was very anxious about anything social, but felt that the alcohol-free social in his hall was one that he could manage, and he came down to that, and he was incredibly grateful. So yes, he wouldn't, his social anxiety was such that going out to the pub felt a step too far, but there's something in his halls did work for him.
Right. So it's more about variety, having like a variety.
Yeah, and there's still loads more to learn here. I'm not telling you that we have got this sussed in any way, but it is about trying to reinforce messages around choice and around respecting other people's choices all the way through this. So even if you're not stopping students drinking, and there are a lot in the final survey which we're showing you, there are lots of students who said it didn't affect how much they drank at all. But if it affected how they treated their friends who don't drink, or their new friends who don't drink, then that's still a win as far as we're concerned, because what you've done is not pressured any of those 25% of students who don't drink to start drinking, which we know can actually be a real big issue for students. So we promised a little bit of know-how about running events, and we were going to do this sort of more workshopping, get everyone into groups to do stuff. So bear with me in terms of taking you through some bits and pieces. Firstly, I want to encourage you as leaders. Oh look, I found the Q&A now. Woo! I've got it. I've got the Q&A. You can ask away. What I want you to do, first of all, is to think of yourselves as bigger opinion formers in your university, because there's one thing around running events that you might be in charge of, but for us, you have got a bigger and wider role. You have got the opportunity to influence touch points with alcohol all the way through your university. And if you were to just make a list of those and start making them in your head now, or even type them in the Q&A, I'm really happy for that. Thinking about the touch points in your university with alcohol, you can begin to see where you can begin to invest more choice into those occasions. I'll give you some examples, because I've spoken to quite a lot of universities over the last few years. You've all got student shops of some description. What is it that they're stocking for people to take away and drink? Is it only alcohol and then soft daytime drinks, or do they have alcohol-free beers, wines and ciders in stock at all? Can you change that? I don't think I've been to an academic talk in the last few years at a university where there isn't wine afterwards, but really there is only wine afterwards. And then there's maybe some shit orange juice in a jug that's left warm for you to help yourself to. So the caterers come and pour the wine and the beer, and then you have to help yourself to some crap orange juice. It's really not acceptable in hospitality terms, right? And so there will be occasions where students go to departmental drinks events, maybe go to guest lectures that have got external speakers, all of those. Those are touch points where you can begin to add some choice into the mix. So we can talk a little bit more about that. Your student societies run huge numbers of events across your university towns. Do they make sure that where they pick and the pubs that they talk to and the venues they talk to have choice for everybody that comes along? Does your student union bar have ample choice? NUS Services Limited is getting a bit better, but the good news is there are clauses so that you can order local products and specialist products for your students, and there's quite an amazing boom in alcohol-free drinks in every single region at the moment in this country. Is it possible to add some more choice behind your student or bars that are run by other providers in your university? Basically, there are probably a list of 100 touch points that you can think of where students might come into contact with alcohol, where they're in the university setting, where the university has some control, where you may be able to start saying, okay, well, if we're serving wine and beer, which is absolutely fine at every event, we will also have a really good alcohol-free soda that can be done on sale or return with the caterer as well. And we'll also have an alcohol-free beer, make sure that they're signposted properly so people know that there's choice. I would highly recommend that you might go through with all sorts of people around that list of particular touch points and see where you might be able to have a very open conversation about adding more choice into those settings. That would actually make a very big difference, and it also sends a signal to everybody, that everybody is welcome to every event. It's not just for the wine drinkers. I'm not sure if you've ever got invitations for things where it goes, join us for wine and nibbles. And if you're a Muslim student, or if your student doesn't drink, you go, well, okay, it's not for me, that one. It's wine and nibbles, that's for other people. So begin to talk about, you know, there being a drinks event with drinks for everybody and nibbles, rather than always making it so alcohol-centric. Can you improve the choice at those occasions? There are so many opportunities to do that. You might have a little bit of a fight on your hand. Internal caterers so far in this country are the most resistant to change, because catering has worked on a system that's been going for ages, which is that they do beer and wine on sale or return, and then they ask you, the client, to decide how many people aren't drinking at your event. Great, you're the guardian of how much drink is available for those people that are hypothetically not drinking. And they do that by the jug for people to help themselves. They make a massive markup out of that 30p carton of orange juice, and then they often don't replenish it because you've only ordered X number of units. That's how the system's worked for ages. So we've been starting to challenge caterers to not do that anymore. And you might want to think about moving some of the budget that you've got for wine and beer to making it wine, beer and other drinks, and ask for sale and return basis for those drinks, as well as the alcohol, so that you can get a better quality product for people. And I can guarantee you, you can do head counts on this, the better quality the alcohol-free drink, the more people drink of it. Because those people who aren't drinking either pick up a water, and water isn't an alcohol-free choice, by the way, it's there for the drinkers, and it's, you know, a human right. But I can guarantee that a good quality drink encourages more people to have an alcohol-free drink, rather than try and nurse an alcoholic drink for a while. And a lot of the data from our members shows that it's these sorts of occasions, these social occasions at work or in their place of study, that throws them off course on their drinking goals, because there isn't anything else to drink and they want to have something to hold in their hand. I've got actually more articles on this around offering choices for a diverse guest list. But if you really want to come down to the meat and bones of all of this, this is a diversity issue, right? You wouldn't not have vegetarian or vegan food options if you were putting on a reception. So why would you only focus on alcohol if you were having drinks? So from a qualities point of view, this is really important. So when your caterers contracts are up, you can put more about the healthy eating clause needing to apply to solids and liquids, and not just about food. And you can start making more demands around the types of alcohol-free drinks you want. I cannot tell you what a difference this would make without you doing anything else in your universities to begin to make sure that there isn't a single event that has alcohol at it that doesn't have choice for other people, and where the wording on invitations talks about drinks of all kinds and doesn't just talk about wine and cheese and nibbles. Anyway, that feels like I just gave you a sermon, sorry guys, but it's a really easy thing to change. And a good example of this is we did a piece of work for University of East Anglia. We wrote a booklet and I ran a training course for their clubs and societies to talk about how to make sure that their events feel inclusive for everybody coming, not just those that are drinking shed loads. And so we took them through this. We took them through why you would want to do this and why it's really important as a club or society, how to speak to venues about the types of drinks that they want, and use their influence as a customer to get the venue to change what they're stocking, and then how to use their invites to make sure that everyone feels included, and it's not going to just be another beery event. And there is actually a supplement that we will do to this, which is tactics for dealing with drunken people. I'm in awe of the Student Nurse Society at University of East Anglia, who, when they ran their ball, at the first time of anyone being too intoxicated, they had a queue of taxis waiting outside, and one of the organisers would literally taxi somebody back to their halls of residence. I was so impressed. That's definitely a supplement that needs to happen. Deborah's asked a question about the price asked for low and no alcohol drinks. Well, there's a couple of things to say, Deborah. Within this market, there are high-end, there are products across different price points. And so you're right that you will point to an alcohol-free bottle of gin currently, which will be retailing at £28. You'll see that the new Gordon's alcohol-free gin comes in at much less. And so as this market develops, there are things coming in at different price point. But the Seedlips and the Three Spirits of this world aren't aimed at students. They're aimed at middle class, working people like us who have got more money to spare. At the student end of the market, there is nothing that comes in more expensive than an alcoholic drink. So Heineken Zero, Budweiser Prohibition, the Gordon's pre-bottled gin and tonic, all of those soft drinks, although the soft drinks obviously have got student tax, sugar tax on them, all come in at a lower price point. You may begrudge paying a bit more, but you know, I personally pay what I want to have the experience I want, and I save on kebabs and taxis and smashing my face with Haribo the following day with a hangover. So to me, the cost isn't so different. But in the student market, in this space at the moment, the prices are comparable. The other thing to say is it costs more to make an alcohol-free drink. They all go through several more processes. They often don't have sugar in or alcohol in, so keeping them stable in the bottle is very difficult. I mean, if you begin to look as close as I have about the cost of making a drink, I would ask still, why is alcohol so expensive? Because alcohol is a massive flavour enhancer, makes any old shit taste good. So, you know, we can have our favourite brands or not our favourite brands, but at the end of the day, we want the effect from the drink. With alcohol-free drinks, you're going for the experience. So it is a question that comes up, but I'm hoping that the more people drink, the more the economies of scale will work and the more drinks that will enter in at a favourable price point. And we're certainly beginning to see that now. But Deborah, there are ways to get discounts. Join our Club Soda email list and we always get discounts for different brands. But I have to say, now I no longer drink, I definitely spend less money. So sometimes some of the nicer drinks I'm happy to pay for. So that's cool. Right, let me take you. So your clubs and societies on their own have an amazing opportunity to mix all of this up as well. And again, it's not about saying we must run alcohol-free events for some people and alcoholic events for other people. No, you want to run events for everybody where everybody has some sort of choice. And we've been talking about the prides about this as well and all sorts. It's not about creating separate. There may be occasions where you want to do separate spaces and make some events alcohol-free only, without a doubt, because not everything has to be focused around alcohol. But if there is alcohol involved, what you're trying to encourage people to do is to provide some choice. So I'm going to move on to doing events yourself, and I'm really aware that there's a really varied group of people here who may or may not be running events within halls. But we'll tell you what we learned from doing the events at halls of residence and other things that we've done, like the Mindful Drinking Festival. The first thing to remember is, what's your main aim for an event? I know that's sort of like teaching you to suck eggs, but you know, nobody's main aim for any event is for everyone to get completely wankered and spew up in the hallway. Generally, you've got a goal around students getting to know each other, or getting to make friends for the first time, meet other people in their hall. So you can begin to schedule a whole load of activities which, you know, help ease that passage of people talking to each other, that doesn't rely on alcohol being the only thing that reduces social inhibitions. So like we said, the things that they did at Bournemouth worked really well. Everything from getting magicians in to do some close-up magic with small groups, and all of those sort of things that you expect to see at student balls for time memorial. They began to look at all sorts of different things they felt would reduce people's inhibitions without the need for alcohol. So that's the first thing. The second is then they looked at what they were going to put behind the bar, and this is where we helped them. So as I said, our aim always is to not only, you know, give people drinks, but to give them some idea on where the drinks may fit into their own diet, and also where those drinks can be bought from, so that substitution occurs. In behaviour change terms, substitution is a really powerful behaviour change tool. And so even if just some of the students who come along realise that they could swap out some of their alcoholic old moot for some alcohol-free old moot during the week, or may remember it when they come to exam time in January and make sure they've got some bottles in the fridge, they don't feel left out in a social, then for us that's a really good win. So it's worth having a look what's in your local supermarkets nearest to your event venue for students where the students shop, so that you can get product that they can get hold of again easily. Equally, you might want to look at what the Student Union bar has, so that when they've tasted a Heineken Zero at your party, they can go to the Student Union bar and order the same, because they've already tried it once, they know they quite like it, they know that they can drink it in a pint and nobody notices it's alcohol free. That's all perfect. So, you know, you'll never quite understand the impact of making sure you've got the right drinks. The freshers palette is very specific. We have learned, so less interested in wine. Under 25-year-olds are less interested in wine generally anyway, but certainly making sure you've got Old Moot alcohol-free or Copperberg alcohol-free. They're very sweet, but they're probably, most young people are probably drinking a fruit cider at the moment, and that's the nearest equivalent. I can tell you we get rid of that, more of that than anything else. Then hitting onto the mainstream lagers, so Heineken, and Zero and Budweiser Zero, but there's also some other recognisable brand names that they would have seen quite a lot in the pub, and you're absolutely right, at the lower end of the price point. So you're not going for the big drop craft beers, although I highly recommend them to you if you want to try them, but moving down that price point to some of the more regular brands. Carlsberg's got one out. Who else has got a beer out?
Pretty much everyone. Pretty
much everyone. Brewdog's beers are now some of their biggest selling beers. So punk are they? Their Punk AF is really popular for a start. Gordon's have now brought out a mixer gin, but before that they did have a pre-mix in a bottle. I'm not actually sure if they're still producing that. But certainly you can make a gin and tonic now with, again, a recognisable brand name at the lower price point. But again, it depends on what's in the supermarkets near you. Then do look at things that are not alcohol-free alternatives. So because anyone who may not drink for religious reasons wouldn't necessarily want to touch a beer or a spirit anyway. But you'll find that on the wine side, there's Iceberg alcohol-free wine, but there are things like Schlur and stuff like that that are sparkling, lower in sugar, that make people feel like there's something interesting. Kombucha is, I think we've got a bit of a mixed response on kombucha. I'm a big fan, but it didn't go down so well. But things like Nix and Kicks, which is now available in all the supermarkets, which is a lower sugar adult soda with a little bit of cayenne pepper in it, that went really well. The grown-up Fentimans ginger beers, they go down really well. Anything in a pink can goes down really well. And also the surprise and of shock and horror that other people make some form of a Coke, like Fentimans Coke, went down a treat, but also shocked everybody that there was other brands when we did the event. So I really recommend either hitting up what's in your supermarket, or also talking to any local producers in your area, and I'm happy to talk to you about who those might be if you want to stick in any of your regions, and we can let you know which brands might be based nearby and might provide you with free stock. Free stock's what we like anyway. Secondly, you need to train your staff. They need to make it like you would make an alcoholic drink, put some care and attention to it. You know, at the end of the day, most of the experience of having a drink when you're out is the experience of it being made properly and with some lime in it and all of those bits and pieces. So think through how you're going to serve it. But also equip your volunteers or your team with the information that they need about the drinks. You know, make sure they know where they can be bought, and explain what the drink is, and explain what alcohol-free is and what 0 to 0.5% means on the label. 0 to 0.5% is a trace amount of alcohol. It's about as much as in a ripe banana and a loaf of bread. It's a naturally occurring level of alcohol. you've got more than that in your stomach right now. So so people will ask those questions. People ask questions about calories, because once you're not drinking, you are more concerned about sugar and calories. Our most popular blog on the whole of our website is the sugar and calories blog. People will ask that, and it's great news that alcohol-free drinks come with less calories, both in the drink and also what you consume through your mouth with a hangover the following days. So make sure that they're equipped to answer some of those questions, and also have conversations with students. It feels like lots of people coming out at our student bars. Suddenly students will come up and just quietly say, oh, I've never drunk and I'm really pleased this is here. I want to have a little conversation with you about it. They won't necessarily volunteer that they're worried about their drinking, although you could equip your team to know where to signpost somebody to if they were worried about their drinking or how much they've been drinking through freshers. Definitely being able to have that and being open to the conversation, but just being able to reassure someone that the fact that they don't drink is absolutely fine, and to ask them what else they would like to see as well, because it really does feel like lots of people just being able to articulate for the first time that they don't want to drink while they're here at university this week is a really, really big thing for some people, and it's really lovely to have those conversations. So make sure you have some time for those conversations. Finally, make sure you promote the event well, and we shouldn't need to do this, but you really do have to tell people that you've got really good options and alcohol-free options at an event, particularly if it's an event that's also got alcohol at it, because our natural assumption for any event that's got drinks at is it's all going to be about alcohol and nothing else. And lots of people absent themselves before they've even turned up. They've gone, this isn't going to be for me. So do make sure you let people know that you've got a range of options and this is where you can buy them. And it's the new exciting space of low and no, and they can come and try loads of stuff out that they'll be able to buy at the supermarket and try in the student union bar, and that there is something for everyone, which is the really important thing. So do make sure that you promote the whole experience, but do make sure people understand that it's not about a boozy night, because the assumption is that it will be. So I hope that tells you a little bit about how you might be able to run events. So I'm going to let Jussi tell you a little bit more now about the outputs from the Bournemouth work.
Yeah.
So just one question just before we move on. So somebody's asked, can it be a challenge covering the cost of alcohol-free events as most of their income comes from the bar? I know that kind of touches upon a little bit of what you were saying, but just so that to make sure we answer that
question come up. Well, it's up to you to decide how you want to run the bar. You can still charge for drinks. That's perfectly there, I guess it depends on your outputs for the event. If your output is about if these would have been free events anyway, and you would normally have spent money on alcohol, then what you're doing is just switching that spending to alcohol free. If you need to charge over the bar, then definitely still do that for these drinks. I do see these drinks as an education point. It's very different to just having alcohol and charging for it. And so you might want to decide how you apportion your budget based on that. I would try a number of things though. I would try speaking to the supermarkets. Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Asda are all part of community action partnerships, or there will be part of some group, won't they, in your university town about drinking and student nightlife and some of that sort of stuff. You could ask them to donate product as part of an activation around this, and make sure that you promote the products back the other way, which you want to anyway, because you want the students to know where to buy them. That's worth a try. Supermarkets are notoriously skint with product, because you should see how much they pay the producers. It's not very much. So you might not get that out of them. With Bournemouth, we've worked on getting donation for product. It is possible that brands would be open to donating product, particularly if they think it will help with sales in the venue over the year. We would like to work with more universities, because then we can do some procurement of that for everybody. Your student union bar can also get a good price and maybe sell it to you at wholesale rather than retail price as well, for those products that are part of the student bar roster. And if you've got a local brewery, so like University of East Anglia have got Adnams, who do Ghost Ship, they've got an alcohol-free cider. They also do alcohol-free wine. I think they were beginning to work with them on free product as part of their corporate social responsibility. So you can work with that. But otherwise, you know, what would you normally do for drink costs as part of an event anyway? Do the same.
I think the prices are getting closer to the alcoholic drinks. So
yeah, and definitely with the student, with the products in the student market, they're definitely coming in at the same cost. In terms of sponsorship, yes, basically the brands that we worked with for Bournemouth was in form of a mixture of sponsorship and CSR. So we gave them this, the report that we did for Bournemouth, we also gave for all of the brands as part of their CSR, giving away products really cheap for big companies, but getting hold of them is the hardest thing in the world. We've got good relationships with all of the drinks providers because, of course, they come to the festival and we do research for them and they're brand members of ours. So we're very good at sort of negotiating that. And in future years, if we can bring in more universities, then we can get products to provide free product for all of the activations that we do. So Bournemouth did not pay for the drinks that went in the fridge fill, and they didn't pay for the drinks behind their bar. But I can tell you their office was completely full of drinks, because to put in a full range of drinks to 636 flats, which is what we did. So we had pallets of drinks being delivered and then students packing them up and putting them in to the halls. They had a lot of drink, but yes, we can work with universities that we work with on sponsorship. Yeah. Oh
okay,
yeah, Lucy's doing a bit.
Yes, so the evaluation. So Bournemouth have been doing pre and post Freshers Week surveys with their incoming students for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's been interesting to see that as they've done these campaigns with us, the expectations of students have also improved. So from whenever 2017 they did the first one, the students were a little bit skeptical about whether any of these campaigns would have an impact on their life. But over the years, they've definitely become more sort of expecting more from the campaigns, that it will have a positive impact on their experience of their first weeks at uni.
We asked them a very specific question about how much it would impact on their drinking. Is that right?
No, it didn't go into that level of detail, because they ask about all kinds of other things as well as alcohol. So we wanted to smuggle in a couple of questions. And then for the 2019 Freshers Week campaign, we did a few questions on the Be Rebel AF campaign, on whether it had an impact on them. And about 1/3 said that it didn't have an impact on them personally, but 40% said, yes, it did have an impact on me, some impact on me, and another 5% said it had a really big impact on me. So of the drinkers, way over half of them felt it was a positive thing. But then we also asked the same of the people who don't drink alcohol, and a vast majority of them said it had a really big impact on me. So it really hit those people nicely. So overall, 63% of the students who responded to the survey said felt it had a positive impact. And then of the people who took part in any of the events and other things, we asked them to give a 1 to 5 star rating of how you would rate the events. And these images aren't the easiest to interpret, but I think about 70% gave it either a 4 or 5 star rating, and almost everyone else gave it a 3 star rating. So overall, a very good feeling from the students on the events. And we also asked about the whole entire campaign, which parts they felt had the most positive impact. And the social media campaign got about 45% of the mentions. The alcohol-free drinks and the events had about 33% or thereabouts. So they were the big ones. The pub crawl was attended by quite a few people, so that didn't get mentioned that much, but the people who did come to that really rated it highly. And we've already mentioned the personal stories, so they really, for the people who took part of these things, and for them it might have been the only freshers events they came to, and even one of the first events they ever came to, it really had a massive impact. So overall,
as you can
really good.
Yeah, and it got a very positive response. Overall, obviously, we can't compare it with this year because there were no events. We just did the social media campaign, the fridge fill, this year with Bournemouth, but we're beginning to work on next year with them as well, and look at how we take the learning from both years and the fact that there will be still COVID restrictions in place later this year, more likely, and take all of that forward. And like I said, there's a lot of new products suddenly in the market, so that increases some opportunities to do some things as well. And pubs and bars, what ones are left, are also feeling very positive. Okay, so just to let you know, the other thing we've added into Bournemouth this year that we'll be evaluating is that we have now got a 4-week course, or it's a 31 lesson course around how to change your drinking. And like we said, it's a reflective course that allows people to set their own goals, reflect on their drinking, what they want their life to be, where they think alcohol fits in, and what, where and who with they drink, so that they can make some more conscious decisions. And that's a digital course that we built with funding from the Wellcome Trust. Finally, that was actually just the information about the Rebel AF course. Finally, we're taking all of this learning and putting it into a product that universities can access. So we will be providing a platform where you can pay for a license and access a year's worth of social media content that takes into account all sorts of points in the student year. It has training for all of your staff and for anyone who might run bars. It's got booklets for your student societies and all sorts of bits like that. And it will be something that we're continually updating and uploading new material to, so that it's easy for you to tailor for your university social channels, or tailor a booklet for your clubs and societies, or add in new training for all of your teams on running an alcohol-free bar, and survey and evaluation questions that you can use. So that's where we're taking this learning. There you are. I said we weren't going to take the full hour. I just talk so much.
Got 3 minutes to go.
You put that slide in. Oh, well done you. You can contact us on those details. Please ask us any other questions. Oh,
that was really helpful. Thank you so much, Laura and Jussi. It was really, really helpful.
Do email me, anyone, if you've got any questions. We're perfectly happy to have a chat.
Fantastic. Should we just wait a minute just to see if anyone puts, sometimes there's a bit of a delay with the Q&A box, just before we wrap it up.
I found the Q&A box now, so you're welcome to ask questions.
Oh, thank you. Deborah's put fantastic work, guys.
Thanks, Deborah. I hope you find an alcohol-free gin that you're happy to pay the price for. How many universities are signed up to the service? Just Bournemouth at the moment, and we're beginning to talk to universities. As you can imagine, we had a big plan last year to talk to everybody, and we started to talk to Manchester and a couple of other universities, and then the world turned on itself. So we're just picking up those discussions again now and taking it easy. We've got Bournemouth as our main doing it, so we will carry on producing this and developing it. No, we don't have any evidence from Bournemouth about impact on behaviour and conduct related issues. Our stuff was mainly primarily in Freshers Week, so it had a very specific lifespan. We've been talking to other universities about doing particular intervention work using the system around preloading and other things that might help around conduct and behaviour. But at the minute, that this is very much focused at trying to normalise asking for an alcohol-free drink. What I'd really like to do is to normalise not drinking. And I want to begin to see, I'm hoping to talk to Bournemouth when we get back to a normal year about impacts in sales and where sales go, because that gives an indication on how comfortable people are ordering an alcohol-free drink and where the balance might be shifting in the amount of alcohol versus alcohol-free. But we're a behaviour change business, so some of those very particular things around behaviour and contact we've been looking at. We'd like to do some more experiments. South Bank University currently evaluating our course, so we'll have the outputs from that soon as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. It's been really, really helpful, and yeah, I know people are putting messages to say so. So yeah, please accept our thank you, and yeah, great, best of luck with the year ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys, and good luck for all of you too. You've got such tough times ahead.
Awesome. So coming up next, so we've got a short break, and then at 2:30, I was worried then that I was going to get the wrong time. At 2:30, we'll be running a session on preparing